Hey guys, today we're going to talk about overlanding gear for beginners. Let's dive into all the gear that we feel like would be your best starting point to get into camping and overlanding, and we'll go a little beyond that as well with, some of the things that you can upgrade to over time. Hi guys, so today we're going to talk a little bit about overlanding gear for beginners or just kind of entry-level gear if you're just starting out. It's really important that you try to use what you already have at the house. Many of the things you can take that you may already have around as you see if you like camping, you practice, go out for a few nights, come back, see the things that you really want to spend your money on versus the things that you may just be able to get from your house and take out to the campground. So we're going to go through some of our essential pieces that we started with and that we feel like would be helpful to start with, and then kind of talk about how over time you can upgrade those things to make it fit for what you need. So the first thing that's really important and everybody kind of thinks about when you go camping is your bedding setup. So the way that we started camping a long time ago was just your regular air mattress that you would blow up. Literally just like sheets from Walmart that you would have at the house, full-size regular pillow. And this is just an example of like a thinner fleece blanket. We used different blankets depending on the temperature previously, but you could layer a couple of fleece blankets or whatever you have, even a comforter from the house if you have enough space in your car. So that's how we started, and it's great in the summer with the air mattress because it's cool underneath you and it's actually pretty comfortable with the sheets and your regular size pillow. So that's how we got into camping, and over time it changed depending on where we were going and then depending on our setup. So before, initially we were in a ground tent, you typically have a little bit more room just in that ground tent. And then we moved into a rooftop tent with a Wrangler and a dog. So it was a little bit tighter in terms of how much space we had. Obviously in the rooftop tent, you're not gonna put an air mattress, although I'm sure there's somebody that's done that. We moved to going for sleeping bags or just like a light blanket if it was hot. Obviously you wouldn't want your really warm sleeping bag. And then your backpacking pillows. This one is a good example of one. It actually packs down tighter than this, but it's way smaller than that. And you can pack it down pretty tight. So for a long time, we used this setup with the tighter, easier to pack setup, especially once we had the baby because we had tons of stuff. So the smaller the better because we had a bunch of stuff we had to fit into the Wrangler. It's interesting though, now we have a bigger kid and still a huge dog, but we've come full circle with our current tent setup and having the canopy camper. We've moved back to doing the full-size pillows because you can pack those in the tent. And these sheets, the trusty sheets. I sleep better with sheets than a sleeping bag, unless it's really cold, in which case sometimes I even will put a sleeping bag up there if it's freezing and we don't have the heater on, but I want to be super cocooned and warm. But for the most part, we just use sheets, regular pillows, and an assortment of different random blankets. We have Rumples from a long time ago that we bought that pack down small, but sometimes we use a big blanket. We have a bigger down blanket when it's super cold. So, we've really come back to this. I think it's the most comfortable and what works for us, but it's funny that that's how we started as well, just with the basics. So it kind of shows you that it really isn't about one piece of gear being better because it costs more or because it seems like it's more legit. Honestly, it's what works for you and what you're comfortable in and what you can fit within your gear. So that's what I would say, whatever works for you and is comfortable for you to sleep with. All right, so the next probably most important thing that people think about when they think about camping is how am I gonna eat, right? So there are definitely people that will just cook over the campfire. We've done that, but we've had a multitude of different setups and stoves, and this isn't even all of the stuff that we've used, and it's not even our current setup that we typically use either. But I did want to go through what I would say is like the best thing to start with. Just your regular Coleman stove that you get at Walmart or wherever is going to be your best bet to start with, I think, because you can do everything on these 2 burners. And like I said, they're inexpensive and easy to find for your propane, just Coleman stove for camping. The other thing that I would suggest, maybe if you've gone on a few trips and you've liked this, is also considering a jet boil like this for boiling water for coffee, tea, hot cocoa, as well as boiling water for something that we have come back to many times, which is the backpacking meal. I have my favorites. I've never tried this one, so I don't endorse it, but I'm sure it's good. But those are great, obviously, if you're backpacking. They're great if you don't have a super consistent like fridge to keep stuff super cold. You're worried about it being really, really hot. And you want to make sure that you don't have your stuff in your cooler go bad. To have a few of these just in case is great. Or the weather is terrible, which we've been there as well, where the weather was like untenable, whether the wind was too strong and you couldn't get anything to cook quickly, or sand was blowing in your food, which we've eaten food like that. This is great because you can just boil the water, pour it in really fast into your backpacking meal, close it up, and then you don't get like the sand in it or whatever crazy thing is happening. Or if it's a thunderstorm or just really freezing cold. It's nice. So this is what I would recommend for anybody that's starting. Do not go out and buy some crazy setup or whatever. This will do. And I would still go camping tomorrow using this and be able to make everything that I would want. So that's kind of the first piece. If you're camping in really, really cold weather, this setup with the white gas, we have used many times backpacking in, like I said, in really cold weather. So your backpacking setup, is down here. You can put your, it's like a little tiny pot. It's actually really cute. Just wanted to show you. I can get it out. Little tiny pot or whatever that you have. I love this Snow Peak stuff. I didn't realize we even still had this. I don't think we've used this in a long time. Super cute. For if you're gonna be somewhere and you don't have a ton of space, you can totally do like a lot of things in that small pot. I know that seems crazy. And then you have like your granddad's stove, as Josh was calling it earlier, that takes the white gas and looks like something from like 1940. It's really cool and like vintage looking for camping. That's another option if it's really cold, and it will hold it will go a lot longer than if you have the propane trying to do that in below freezing or something like that. So that's gonna be like, you do wanna think about, I know a lot of people just think, well, how am I gonna keep the stuff cold? How am I gonna take enough stuff? And how am I gonna cook it? But you've gotta also think about the weather, because the conditions, especially the wind and the temperature, are gonna affect how things cook. I've been there, I know this, and I still am like, the wind is not letting it, cook fast enough when we're at the beach or whatever, and the wind is like beating against the side of the Jeep where we're cooking, and I'm like, well, obviously it's blowing out the flame or barely letting the flame get to the food. So I have to remind myself of that. A windshield's great if you have one. Our current setup is also, it's similar to like a bigger stove, but it folds out. Instead of being like huge, it folds together and packs down a little bit smaller, because again, we have some of the luxuries and we carry some different things that we didn't used to carry, so we have to save in space with other things. We've had a trailer with a huge kitchen and a really fabulous stove, the best stove we've ever had. Remind me the brand of the stove. Partner Steel. It was a Partner Steel, and it was the best camping stove I've ever had. So once you get to where you're camping a ton, consider something like that. And we don't have our current setup out. We should have it out, but we'll show you that. I'm sure you've seen it in our different videos, but that's also great because, like I said, it packs down small into itself. So anything that you have that will pack, pots in particular, if you want to make a larger amount of food, it has to pack down inside of itself or collapse or something, or you're just not going to have enough space with your camping setup. We've also had scottles. Those pack down decently small because you take them apart. I am not like a master chef. I could never get the temperature right on it, but that doesn't mean that there's not people that do. There's amazing food that has come off of scottles I've had. Some things are good, but I'm not like a patient cook, so I would always turn it up too high and just roast it. Anyway, but those are my thoughts. I could talk about the cooking portion of this for a really long time, but the most important thing that you think about is making sure that your meals are going to be realistic for what like I said, the temperature outside, what the weather's going to be, and that you have the right setup to be able to make that, and the right pots and pans and cooking setup that you need for what you're making. So definitely, plan it out, think about what you need, and then kind of go from there, and then upgrade. If you, like I said, are camping a ton and you're tired of using this guy, upgrade to something that's a little bit nicer. But definitely I could cook everything I needed to on this. Okay, so another important thing is water, how you're gonna take it with you and use it while you're camping, both for drinking, washing hands, etc. So we started off camping with these guys, and sometimes we still bring one every once in a while, just depending on where we're going and what we're doing. So these are great. It's good to have them in a bin or stored in some kind of way so that they're not moving around, busting, hitting somebody in the head, falling down, whatever is going on. But these work just fine, and that's how I would start camping for your first couple of trips. So, and then you can obviously have like bottled water in your cooler that's cold, but it's always good to have more water than you think you need. By a lot, just in case. You can always come back and store it back in the pantry if you don't use it. And use it for the next trip, or just keep it for like hurricane supplies. We actually keep these anyway at our house just in case there's like an emergency. We were traumatized from not having water for like a week one time when there was a hurricane. It's not that we didn't have power, we just didn't have drinking water. So we always keep those. Some other ways that we've stored water for traveling include this guy. This is actually really nice. We've used this for a long time, especially beach camping. So it holds quite a bit of water, but I can still carry it when it's full. Obviously it's not easy to, but you do want to make sure you can pick it up and carry it around if it's full, especially if you were to break down and you need to take it with you, or if you need to move it around. So this has the little spigot on it. It's gravity fed, but even now with our current setup, we have gravity fed water that we use most of the time. Most camping setups, that's all you need until you get to showering, which we'll talk about later, and that's more of like an advanced camping thing. But you could totally take a bird bath underneath the gravity-fed water, and I've done it. You have the roto packs, which we also have used more for the non-drinking water and like the gravity-fed, like washing your hands, washing your feet at camp. And we kept this outside of the Jeep most of the time when we used this setup, so this is another option as well. It's going to get hot if it's outside, obviously in the summer. And then something that we use currently. So this is not our primary use, but depending on what camping setup we're going to, we will use this Dometic water jug. It's awesome. It holds a ton of water. It's super easy for me to carry. It's the right size for the amount of water. And you just lay it like that, and it's gravity fed as well. So you can pour your water bottle, or like I said, wash your hands, take a bird bath, whatever you need to do. I think we've also had backpacking setups with like bagged water where you hang it from a tree. That's another option. You could even use your, like, if you have one of those hydration packs for your backpack, you can use that and hang it from a tree and, have like a little setup with that. Currently, we have what I would say is like the holy grail of water setups. So we have a tank on the Jeep. We use that to pull for showers as well as for drinking water and for hand washing, and all of it is going to be gravity fed from outside of the Jeep. It's awesome. And then we set up obviously the pump for showers with the heater. But again, it's very like simple. It's nothing super fancy. You don't have to have like fancy pressurized water to be able to get most things done. And yeah, I mean, we've even done like the little sprayers, like the weed killer sprayers for our feet at the beach. That actually works pretty well. I saw some TikToks of moms with like different setups, but definitely the weed sprayer is like the best for beach feet. If you're wanting something pressurized, that's super inexpensive, but I would consider starting here and then seeing what your needs are and kind of going from there. But the biggest thing with water is making sure that you have enough drinking water and more than what you think you need, depending on where you're going. So just always pack more. Yeah, but I think that's it with the water. And we'll show you a few other things as well. Okay, so we're gonna talk about how you store your food, keep food cold, as well as drinks. Obviously, this is just an example of a cooler, but this is where we would recommend you start and where we started when we started camping. I think we had like a knockoff Yeti. I mean, they were fine. It worked the same, and we used that. We've had a bunch of different coolers, soft side and hard side, depending on what you need. If the weather is pretty like, not too cold, not too hot, then these are great. I mean, really, you're not going to have a big issue at all, even if you're on a longer trip. Now, if you're on a short trip and it's really hot, you're fine because you can just cycle ice in if you can buy that. So make sure you pre-cool your cooler, and to save space and prevent everything from getting wet, you need to repackage everything into Ziploc bags, or even preferred beyond that would be like a vacuum seal bag, to make sure that your like steaks or whatever you put into a baggie don't get just like completely soaked with the water from the cooler. You would obviously just put minimal drinks if you have a smaller cooler, and you cycle those in daily. Like you just put what you're gonna drink that day in, and then after you drink those and after you eat dinner and make some space, and add some ice. That's what we always do. Even with our fridges, we do that. This is an example of a fridge. One of the ones that we use. Some of them have freezers, some do not. Just kind of depends on what model you choose. I would not buy a fridge to begin with. There's a lot of reasons for that. Cost prohibitive, as well as like looking at your setup with your vehicle and your batteries is also super important. If you're gonna have a fridge, you really need to be thinking about the batteries more than anything, because even when we've had pretty decent setups with extra batteries, sometimes it's just pulling too much and you have a dead battery, or you're freaking out on a trip because it's draining too much of your battery, or the fridge is turned off, and then you're freaking out about that. You can put ice in a fridge, like a cooler, so it's not the end of the world if something were to happen, but I would start with cooler, see how you like things. In the fridges as well, I do tend to, depending on how long the trip is, if it's a super long trip, I will cut up my veggies, I will prepackage my meat, I will put frozen meat in so that it will stay frozen for a little bit and thaw slowly so that it stays good throughout the whole week. Like, I'll do a lot of different things to try to make it work. But the biggest thing is don't start with putting your drinks in. I always put my food in the bottom of my fridge, and then whatever drinks I can fit on top, that's how I'll pack it. Same thing for the cooler. I mean, it's no different. You just want your food in the cooler to be the closest to like where the majority of the ice is. And you want to start with your meats, and then like obviously your fruit, your veggie, if it's not cut up, if you don't want to pre-cut like your onions and your peppers or whatever you have, I would say even keeping those room temperature and not putting them in the cooler or fridge. I also do that sometimes if I run out of space. And your fruit as well, like keeping it whole and not cutting it till you get there, keeping a whole watermelon out, for example, and cutting it at the beach. You're still gonna have a little bit left over potentially that you'll baggie up and put in the cooler, but those are some of my tricks. Right now we're running a fridge that has a freezer in it, so on a longer trip I can even take meat and keep it frozen until I want to pull it out and thaw it. So that's like, I would say the top tier of like luxury. We've had a lot of different ones, and for a long time with the sleep platform that we had in our camper, I couldn't have that fridge, so I was like depressed. So now that we have it back, I'm really happy because I do like to keep some things frozen. And it's nice when it's really hot to have a popsicle and some ice for your cocktails. So that's like the other end of the spectrum, but we've definitely camped with the cooler and had really great food. You just want to be strategic in how you pack it and your planning. So I think that's everything with food storage, other than obviously if you have things that don't need to be cold or hot, you know, you're going to still want to make sure that it's secure from the animals. We've learned that the hard way. So don't leave your food tote out if a raccoon can open it, you know, things like that. Or a bear, as Josh has learned. Don't let the bear take your entire tote of coffee and open it up. All right, so to continue our conversation about not just food storage, but storing like the camp essentials that you're gonna need, I have some examples of different totes that you can use. Starting with like just your Walmart camping tote. There's a lot of different options. You'll see people commonly with like the action packers or something similar to that or something like this. These are great. You can put your food in here. You're gonna wanna make sure that it's small enough that you can pick it up when it's full and put it back in the vehicle if it's something like this, because we've seen raccoons open bins. They're very, very good at that type of thing if they are motivated. And obviously you definitely don't want to leave food out anyway if you are in bear country or something like that. But just even if you're in like a campground, you're going to want to think about raccoons. So that would be my piece of advice. It's great to use a hard-sided instead of just using like grocery bags, which again, we've done that before in a pinch, but having your like chips in here and your cookies don't get all crushed and crumbled up. It's a lot easier. You could, if you have a situation where you're camping in like out west or in the mountains, it's gonna be best if you have food in something like the Zargis box that has a lock or something that you can tie it to. In this case, we tie it to our super heavy Zargis box because this one's lighter, and we usually keep like our bread and our chips, stuff that's light, in here. And as you can see, it has some bear scratches from our little run-in where it wasn't, the bear did not actually open the lock. It like, the entire lock came off. Like it figured out a way to like jiggle the entire thing apart.
It ripped the rivets.
Yes, the rivets. But like this was like over like hours. So yeah, like a long time it took the bear. But you're gonna be a lot safer in something like this. That makes me feel great that it took him that long to get it. And again, this was our lightest box, had the lightest stuff in it and the most smelly. So thinking coffee, like if you're making food that's super smelly, just keep it inside the vehicle or like very secure in something like this. And then the Yeti loadout box. I love this box. Actually, it's a perfect size to carry around if you put heavy stuff in it. It's still not too heavy. And I like the way that they're organized. We actually don't use this as much for food. You totally could, but the way that the organization is in it, we use it for like stuff for the campfire, bug spray, like little like rope, like random things that you might need around camp. You want to keep those things that you need right when you pull up, like all in the same spot, especially bug spray, because you always get there and it's like dusk and you need to make dinner, but you're getting like attacked by bugs. So that's going to want to be something that you keep all those essentials, your headlamp, you know, if you get there and it's starting to get dark, stuff like that. So that's what we use that for. And, you know, you just want to make sure that you organize and group things in a way that makes sense of how you're going to use it. So like if I have 2 food totes, my lunch stuff goes in here, my dinner stuff goes in here. Because if I leave camp and leave this at camp, for example, if I'm not afraid of the raccoons, my lunch stuff is in here. I have my bread and my chips for lunch. So things like that is just an example, but you just want to be strategic about how you pack it, and that makes for like the smoothest camping experience if things are grouped in a way of how you're going to use it, not necessarily, well, it's all food, so it's going to go in this tote. You need to be thinking more like how you're going to utilize the things and how easy it is for you to grab it. I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for listening to me go on and on about the things I think are important. If I didn't answer your questions, if you have additional questions, please comment below and we'll try to answer them for you. And we appreciate you. Thank you.